the business aspect. Let's talk about the players.
Okay.
Because they are not happy. There was an angry 75-minute meeting at the Canadian Open on Wednesday in which Monahan took a lot of hits, took a lot of heat from, there was more than 100 golfers that were there. He answered every question. I give him credit. He did not make apologies. He did not give them specific details because those things have not yet been worked out by the organizational committees. But he said this was the right time to do it. Both parties were interested in doing this for the good of golf. It was not going to help either one of us to go to antitrust. It's a big issue there. But, I mean, he got smoked. He was called a traitor. He was called a turncoat. He was called a thief in the night. He was accused of taking blood money. One of the players stood up and said, do you have the courage now to go face the 9/11 family united groups that you stood next to after 9/11, and you stood with them and condemned what the Saudis were doing to snare all these players abroad? Are you willing to go talk to them and tell them you're sorry that you had to change your mind? And he said he would. Rory McIlroy was really angry because he's the most influential guy right now in the Players Advisory Committee. Nobody from that committee was incorporated in these talks. There were just 4 people.
Wow.
Monahan, a lawyer, Dunn, and Hurley. Those 4 are the only ones that met with the LIV.
Incredible.
Nobody knew. The players did not know. Jimmy Dunn called Rory McIlroy at 6:30 Wednesday morning. I said, this is going to be announced within a half hour. And McIlroy was speechless.
Oh, I'm sure.
And by the time he got to Toronto's course for practice and a press briefing, he was so angry he couldn't link his words together. He slept on it. He then did another press conference yesterday, talked extensively, and said he had come to peace with what they did because golf is in a better place right now. But, big but, John, there must be consequences to Phil Mickelson and Dustin Johnson and every one of those 31 guys who left.
Yeah.
Rory McIlroy just flat out, front and center at the Canadian Open, said you cannot allow these guys to have gone abroad, made all this money, badly damaged our tour. There have to be consequences. And he says that the PGA Tour needs to fine every one of those 31 before giving them their tour player cards back.
Interesting.
Each guy has to reapply for his tour card. So that's the big issue. And then Rory asked the question, and a lot of fans have the same question. People who read my website sent me notes about this. What about the guys who stayed loyal here? Turned down $100 million to go to Saudi Arabia. What do they get out of this? Are you going to compensate them? Will there be a bonus to them for their loyalty to the badge, to the PGA Tour badge? So that's a story that has to be decided yet. Matt Kuchar was the only one spoke out very positively about this after the meeting. He said the one thing is we now have not only peace, we truly have a global golf tour. And by the way, we've already made a lot of bonus money with the elite tournaments the PGA selected to give us this year. And by the way, the PGA Tour will run the global tour. So it is our tour. Quote, we won.
Wow.
So that's interesting that, a lot of players are really upset. I think this thing will settle itself out. And to what you said, and as I indicated, I think this is win-win for everybody. It's a win-win for the fans because all the players are now back or will be back together in 2024 and have a chance. And now you've got the finances because of the Saudi money to really expand this thing and do it global. So I threw a lot at you. Give me your response. Do you let Phil Mickelson and those guys back in cart-free? What do you do to the guys who are loyal? Go ahead.
You got to let them back in because losing all those marquee players, affected probably viewership and attendance at the events. But yeah, they've got to somehow, bend a knee, to the PGA. And is it a fine? Is it something else? I don't know. I think, but they'll have to work that out. But my understanding is that the PGA was a players-run league, or a players-run organization. And so now you've got, the commissioner of the organization kind of independently negotiating this deal and just dropping a bomb on all those players. I mean, it's no wonder that argument went 75 minutes was so heated because these players feel like they're equal partners or something close to that. And yet, this hammer dropped. But in the end, I don't know how we're going to ever overcome this idea that this is, quote unquote, blood money, that the Saudi prince is involved with this, and they're the ones that assassinated the journalist. And there's been, links to a lot of other problems around the world. I don't know if we can ever get over that. You can't just sort of wave your hand and that goes away.
General consensus is, I guess there's a price on everything in sports, because the Saudis bought Newcastle United in the English Premier League. The Saudis bought their way into the Olympics at Qatar. The Saudis bought their way into Formula One racing this year and are going to grow that. They haven't bought an NFL team or an NBA team yet, but if it's happening in all these other places, money talks, people walks. It's a big issue. What's the reaction globally? USGA, quote, it's good we resolve this conflict. RNA, the Royal and Ancient that runs the British Open, quote, I am pleased that these people will move forward. LPGA, pleased, fractured system was no good for anybody. Augusta, home of the Masters, quote, pleased, rich history, we will bring this together. And the PGA associates, pleased, period, exclamation point. So I think that the reaction from everybody's been pretty positive, although the guys that made the sport what the sport is are really upset. And I thought to myself, I was writing my column the other night, and you can check it on my website in the archives. I wonder what Arnie Palmer spinning in his grave would say, what Ben Hogan would say, what Sam Snead would say. Jack Nicklaus has been very mum and very quiet about this. He's one of the last of the great living legends. We've not heard from some of the other great global players yet about this. So story's not over. So I guess I'll ask the question for everybody watching us in a live stream. Like or dislike, who won, who lost, PGA versus LIV? Is it good? Is it bad for golf? You golf fans watching us on a live stream, send us a message. So that's a big story. It's taken up a lot of our time, but I thought you'd want all the angles and the details as to how we got to where we are on a Thursday afternoon looking towards 2024.
Well, yeah, I agree. It's a ton in there and a lot of different angles, but in the end, it's always good to see disputes resolved and people can kind of put their egos aside and kind of come to agreement. And yeah, you got to grease the palms a little bit. It's a financial thing here, but hopefully this all works out, because if it does, it'll be really good for the sport, especially taking it globally. I mean, imagine now Tiger maybe playing in Germany and France. What about the LPGA and, their international players? Are they part of this? Because there was a rumor that they were going to merge or be helped out by these other two organizations.
Not yet, but obviously another day brings another meeting, and you never know where that goes. And I would assume that the PGA Global will reach out and incorporate the LPGA under the same umbrella. Again, global golf. Okay, if that